In the half-finished dialysis suite, Apprentice Emily Carter torqued a 1944 Navy spec copper elbow onto the high-pressure feed line, thick-walled, salvaged by her grandfather.
Grandpa Joe said this copper outlasted torpedoes. A dialysis line won't test it.
Master Plumber Gregory Stoll climbed the ladder behind her, already scanning the work with a scowl.
What the hell is that? That's not off the truck. You used scrap on a hospital job.
Gregory ripped his wrench free and hurled it to the concrete floor with a deafening clang.
Use the new one. Reynolds, write her up. Unauthorized material.
Carter, you are off this line. Bathrooms, ground floor, now.
By noon, the write-up was filed unauthorized material, circled in red, and Emily's reassignment was posted. Ground floor restrooms. That evening, a courier pulled into the loading bay with a worn leather toolbox, her grandfather's, sent by her mother the day before he died, arriving on the worst day of her apprenticeship. For Emily, quality never quits. Grandpa Joe
pulled this elbow off a destroyer that survived kamikaze hits. Nobody calls that junk.
She was 7 when he first showed her a cross-section of salvaged copper under his workbench lamp.
See this wall thickness, M. 3 times what they sell today. World War II ships didn't fail, and neither will this.
He handed her the elbow with the 1944 stamp, still sharp.
You keep this. When some foreman tells you to use cheap stuff, you remember what's inside this copper.
She traced the anchor stamp with a fingernail, the way she'd seen him do 100 times.
I held that elbow when I got my apprenticeship letter. I held it today before I climbed that ladder.
Now, on the floor beside the toolbox, she could still hear his voice over the distant hum of the hospital.
Quality isn't what they buy, Em. It's what they can't tear apart.
He knew I'd need it. I just didn't know why.
The next morning, she reported to the basement restrooms. A concrete box with a single work lamp, the air thick with bleach.
I could still be up there. That elbow wasn't junk.
Mid-morning, Gregory appeared on the metal stairs above, coffee cup in hand, watching her struggle with a corroded valve.
Bet it feels real important down here, doesn't it? Next time, use the spec pipe.
Foreman Reynolds stopped her in the corridor later, glancing over his shoulder.
Keep your head down, Carter. Stoll's got the owner's son on speed dial. No more trouble.
Thursday, while swapping a sink trap, she heard 2 journeymen in the hall. Gregory had rerun the dialysis line himself, all brand new parts.
He tore out my work. The elbow is probably in a scrap bin behind the hospital.
That evening, she sat on a crate beside her toolbox, the photo of Joseph propped against the leather.
Grandpa said quality doesn't need permission. But right now, it feels like I am the only one who knows.
At 2:17 a.m., a city pressure regulator on the old feed line failed catastrophically. The gauge in the hospital's mechanical room pegged into the red before the safety valve jammed. Upstairs, the Type M copper Gregory had so proudly installed began to strain and snap. Joints tore apart. Water cannoned through drywall, filling the cardiac hallway in minutes. Nurses rushed wheelchairs through ankle-deep floodwater, calling for emergency shutdown. By 4:30 a.m., the entire wing was a cascade, 30 million of damage pouring through 3 floors. But in the dialysis suite, where Emily had once climbed her ladder, one line held its shape. The pressure wave that shattered every other joint never broke through the thick-walled navy copper. Water dripped from the old elbow's seam, but the metal bore no bulge, no crack, just the anchor stamp, still sharp. No one saw it yet. The only witness was the quiet hiss of a pipe that outlasted the storm. At first light, the floodwater drained. The cardiac wing was a skeleton of soaked drywall and shattered copper.
It's the supplier's fault. That Type M can't handle a surge like this. I told them.
Captain Harris walked through the destruction, touching burst joints. He had seen torpedo damage that looked cleaner.
Every single line burst except that one. Why? That's a different section. Maybe a different press rating. I'll check the paperwork.
Harris shone his flashlight on the lone pipe. The metal was darker, thicker, and the elbow bore a stamp he knew.
This isn't Type M. That's Navy Spec copper. Wolvoro T. Navy Spec? Who would have? I didn't authorize any old stock.
Harris didn't answer. He pulled out his phone and called the board chairman. Emergency meeting. Now. Full material audit. Gregory's face went pale. There was an apprentice he'd written up for using an old elbow. But that was days ago. Within the hour, Harris had the job foreman and Gregory corralled in the site trailer, a stack of assignment logs between them.
Section 4B was routed by an apprentice named Carter. She was pulled off the line the same day. Why? Because I caught her using salvaged pipe. That's a code violation. I wrote her up proper.
The foreman nodded, but his eyes avoided Harris's.
We didn't know the elbow was old until after she installed it. She should have known better.
The elbow she used is the only fitting that survived a pressure spike that tore apart everything else. You are telling me she endangered the job? She broke protocol. Doesn't matter if it held. She could have blown up the whole wing.
Harris tapped the anchor stamp, his voice dropping.
I know this stamp. My first ship had this copper. It was built for battle. So unless she's a saboteur, I want to hear her side.
He turned to the foreman. Bring me Carter. Now. Gregory's jaw tightened. The foreman stepped out of the trailer. But Gregory caught his arm and pulled him into a corner of the damaged corridor.
You breathe one word that the elbow worked, and we're both done. She used junk. End of story.
Harris saw the stamp. He's not buying the junk angle.
It's in the write-up. Unsanctioned material. That's code. Unless you want to explain why you let it slide.
Reynolds looked at the floor. The write-up had his signature too. He nodded slowly, his silence heavier than words. 2 floors below, Emily was tightening a toilet flange when she heard raised voices echo through the pipe chases. She didn't hear words, but the tone was sharp. Then she saw 2 journeymen whisper and glance toward her.
Something's wrong. That's not about a backed-up sink.
She knelt by her toolbox and pulled out the photograph of Joseph, running a thumb over his uniform.
You said quality doesn't need permission. So whatever's coming, I won't apologize.
By noon, the hospital board assembled in the conference room, the $30 million damage report at the table's center.
Carter used an antique part without approval. The pressure spike was out of our control, but her decision created a weak point.
I saw the elbow. She knew it wasn't spec, but she installed it anyway. I had to pull her off the line.
Several board members nodded grimly. The narrative was spreading. An apprentice had cut corners.
Before we hang an apprentice, I want that elbow tested. Metallurgy doesn't lie.
10 minutes later, Emily was led through the boardroom doors, still in her work boots, the toolbox left in the hall.
They think I broke something. They think I am a liability. Grandpa, what do I do?
The board chairman leaned forward, voice cold. Apprentice Carter, explain why you chose a pipe part that wasn't approved for this site.
I used a Navy spec elbow my grandfather gave me. He taught me it was stronger than anything modern. I didn't cut corners.
Gregory scoffed from his seat, but Harris's eyes never left Emily.
This is my grandfather, Joseph Carter. He served on a destroyer that had this exact copper in its engine room.
I recognize that stamp. My first ship was a destroyer. They pulled that copper from her when she was scrapped.
He pulled back his sleeve, revealing the same anchor tattoo on his forearm.
This isn't a VFW haul. She used an unapproved part and nearly flooded the hospital.
It's not about the stamp. It's about wall thickness. The Navy spec is 3 times stronger than Type M. It saved that line.
Harris nodded slowly, something shifting behind his eyes.
I want that elbow tested by an independent lab. This board doesn't vote until we have metallurgy data.
Gregory's mouth opened, but no words came. The foreman stared at the floor.
He believes me. Or at least he believes in the copper. Thank you, Grandpa.
The chairman's gavel struck. Meeting recessed until the lab results arrive. Emily walked back to the basement, but for the first time in days, her footsteps felt lighter.
Harris connected with Grandpa's copper. Maybe the lab will see what I see.
At an independent materials lab, A technician sliced the elbow open under a microscope. Wall thickness 0.065 inches. Modern type M is 0.022, near 3 times the standard. The lab report was sent directly to Captain Harris's phone that evening.
1944, Navy elbow exceeds ASTM type M by 200% in burst pressure. This is the only reason the wing didn't collapse entirely.
He forwarded the report to the full board with a one-line note. I told you. Now do the right thing. Gregory got wind of the results and cornered Reynolds near the boiler room.
It doesn't matter. The code says she broke protocol. Keep your mouth shut and we walk away clean.
The board members opened the report. The question was no longer about the pipe. It was about who they would protect. The board reassembled. The lab report now projected on the wall. Harris stood before them.
This elbow withstood a pressure surge that tore through every modern joint. Without it, we'd be looking at total structural failure. It was unapproved material. The building code doesn't care if it works. She broke the rules and endangered the hospital.
Several board members shifted uncomfortably. The technical data was clear, but the protocol was a legal shield.
If she had used the approved pipe, every dialysis patient would have been in that flood. She saved lives. That is not a violation. So next time an apprentice uses a garden hose and gets lucky, do we throw a parade? Rules exist for a reason.
The foreman, sitting in the back, looked at the floor. He had signed the write-up that nearly buried the truth.
You wrote her up, Stoll. You buried her expertise because it threatened your authority. That is the real danger here.
The chairman raised a hand. Enough. We will now vote on whether to pursue disciplinary action against Apprentice Carter, or to commend her. Outside in the corridor, Emily leaned against the wall, her toolbox at her feet. The door remained closed. The boardroom door swung open. A clerk motioned for Emily. She lifted her toolbox and stepped inside. She faced the long table, her grandfather's photo, and the elbow raised before her.
This elbow came off a destroyer that survived torpedo hits in 1944. My grandfather, Joseph Carter, fitted that ship's engine room. He taught me that quality is what doesn't tear apart.
She raised the photo so they could see the young black sailor in uniform, the same anchor on his cap that Harris bore on his arm.
I will not apologize for building something that saved a hospital wing.
The room went stone still. Gregory's hand slammed flat on the table. But Harris was already on his feet.
This board cannot punish expertise. I move we postpone the vote pending a full review of site management and materials oversight.
The chairman nodded. Seconded, the board will conduct a comprehensive personnel review before any decision. Emily's knees almost buckled. She didn't smile, but something in her chest unlocked.
They didn't fire me. They're going to look. That's all I asked for.
Over the next 2 days, Harris and an HR investigator tore through Gregory Stoll's personnel files.
3 complaints from black apprentices. He failed or terminated. 1 for using substandard type M himself on a clinic job.
They brought Reynolds in alone. The foreman sat in a folding chair, hands shaking.
I lied. The elbow was stronger than anything we had. Stoll told me to stay quiet or he'd bury us both.
The confession was given to the board that same morning.
This wasn't about protocol. It was about protecting a pattern of discrimination and contempt for expertise that doesn't look like him.
The chairman called for silence, then announced the board would convene for a final vote in 48 hours. Emily was informed by phone. She was in the basement, but this time the call came to her.
2 days. They'll decide by Friday. Grandpa, this might really turn.
The vote was set. The hospital held its breath. Friday morning, Emily sat in the corridor outside the boardroom, her grandfather's toolbox across her knees. The door to the vote had not opened.
Carter, they're about to call the vote. You can let it happen, or you can stand before them one more time. Your call.
If I just sit here, they might clear my name, but nothing changes for the next apprentice who knows more than her foreman. I need to speak, not to defend myself, to make sure this never happens again. I want a role reviewing critical lines.
That's a lot to ask from a board that was ready to fire you. You sure?
Grandpa Joe tightened pipes on a destroyer while the ship was being shelled. He didn't wait for permission, I am sure. Tell them I want 5 minutes. That's all.
Harris went inside. Emily opened the toolbox and pulled out a worn Navy pipe-fitting manual, its margins filled with Joseph Carter's handwriting.
He said, "Quality doesn't need permission. This manual holds 70 years of it."
The door reopened. A clerk motioned. Emily tucked the manual under her arm and walked in, no longer an apprentice waiting for a verdict. Emily laid the worn manual on the board table, its spine cracked, its pages bristling with handwritten notes.
This manual belonged to my grandfather, Joseph Carter. He was a Navy pipefitter in 1942. Every note in here is decades of material science.
She opened it to a page with a hand-drawn cross-section of a pipe, the wall thickness annotated in Joseph's neat cursive.
The Navy spec wall thickness is 3 times today's Type M. That's not junk. That's engineering from a man who survived a war.
She held her grandfather's Navy photo up beside the manual, the same anchor stamp on his cap that was now etched on a copper elbow down the hall.
I am not asking for an apology. I am asking for a permanent role, a materials consultant who reviews every critical care line before it's installed.
A murmur rippled through the board. Harris leaned forward, his anchor tattoo resting on the table.
This isn't about me. It's about making sure the next apprentice who knows something isn't buried by a foreman who's threatened.
She closed the manual and stood silent, waiting. The chairman nodded slowly, then called the secretary. The board prepared to vote. Emily stepped out of the boardroom, her grandfather's manual still under her arm, and took her place in the corridor. Behind the closed door, the board's murmur rose. Captain Harris stood one last time.
She saved $30 million because she listened to an old sailor, her grandfather. Let's make sure the next sailor is listened to.
The chairman raised his hand. Let the vote proceed. The room hushed. One by one, board members lifted their papers or touched screens. Harris's jaw was set. Outside, Emily leaned against the wall, her toolbox beside her, eyes closed. The boardroom door cracked open, letting out a sliver of light. A clerk stepped out, scanned the corridor, and called, "Apprentice Carter." Her breath caught. She lifted the toolbox and walked forward. The clerk's expression gave nothing away. The door swung wider. Emily stepped inside. The boardroom was quiet. Every face turned toward her.
The board has voted. Gregory Stoll is terminated for gross misconduct. The general contractor's contract is revoked, effective immediately.
Behind her, security moved forward and took Gregory by the arm. He didn't resist.
He threw his wrench on the ground to humiliate me. Now he's the one being walked out.
Apprentice Carter, the board offers you a permanent senior materials consultant role. Every critical care line must receive your written approval.
I accept. And I have one more request, Captain Harris. I want to sit for the journeyman exam early. I want the license that proves I'm not just a consultant. I am a plumber.
The chairman nodded. The board grants your request. Take the exam as soon as you're ready.
78 years after Grandpa Joe tightened pipes on a destroyer, his toolbox will carry a state license.
As she walked out, the hospital's print shop already produced her new badge, Emily Carter, Senior Materials Consultant. For 3 weeks, Emily lived out of her grandfather's toolbox, his manual open beside her code books, his notes guiding her through pipe formulas and joint tolerances.
He didn't have a textbook. He had a war. If he could learn this on a ship, under fire, I can pass a state exam.
On the morning of the exam, she carried the toolbox into the testing center, the leather warm under her hand.
This is for the bathroom reassignment. For every time he called it junk.
Her torch was steady. The joint came out clean, no porosity, no gap, the bead even. The proctor marked her near perfect. The written section covered hydronics, code, and material science. She answered every question, her grandfather's voice in her head. The state board, knowing her case, expedited the results. 3 days later, an email hit her phone.
Pass. Journeyman Plumber, State of Ohio.
She set the toolbox on her kitchen table, opened it, and rested the phone inside. the screen glowing beside the photo of Joseph.
You said quality doesn't need permission. Today, it got a license number.
The State Plumbing Board posted results online. Emily Carter, first in Ohio. Her phone lit up with messages. The Union Hall filled with journeymen who had doubted her once.
These hands once tightened a toilet flange in a basement. Now they're shaking hands that call me sister.
That afternoon, Emily drove to the hillside cemetery where Joseph Carter was buried. She knelt and placed the vintage elbow in the old toolbox beside his headstone.
Grandpa, they know. They know it wasn't junk. Thank you for teaching me what holds.
She opened the toolbox and pulled out a small engraving pen she had bought that morning. Beneath the stenciled Joseph Carter, she carved 6 new letters: USS Justice. The fresh brass shone against the worn leather. The destroyer's name was home.
You served on a ship called Justice. Now your toolbox will too.
6 months after the flood, the rebuilt cardiac wing gleamed. Emily stood at the ribbon, consultant vest over her work shirt, the engraved toolbox beside her.
This wing was saved by an apprentice who trusted an old sailor's copper. Emily Carter's choice prevented $30 million in damage.
After the applause, she walked the renovated plumbing rooms alone, calibrating gauges, running a fingernail along new joints.
No one will ever call good copper junk again. Not on my watch.
A bronze plaque on the wall caught the light. This wing reopened under the review of Emily Carter, senior materials consultant. Quality never quits. Beside the plaque hung the original 1944 elbow, its anchor stamp polished to a dull sheen, now a permanent fixture. Emily stopped before it. Her grandfather's photo was in her toolbox, but this elbow was his hands.
Grandpa, they hung your elbow in the hospital. Justice is on the wall now.
As she walked away, her shadow fell across the plaque, the stenciled names of Joseph Carter and USS Justice overlapping. The hospital was safer because one apprentice had trusted 78 years of knowledge, and now everyone knew. That spring, Emily stood in a high school classroom, her toolbox open on the teacher's desk, the 1944 elbow resting beside it.
My grandfather was a Navy pipe fitter. He taught me that good copper outlasts everything. Even a flood. That's not luck. That's material science.
In the front row, a young black girl with braids watched without blinking, her notebook untouched.
That was me 10 years ago. She's waiting for someone to tell her she can. You don't need a degree to be brilliant at this. You need a good mentor in copper that holds.
After the bell, Emily pressed a small copper coupling into the girl's palm. The girl's fingers closed around it, her knuckles pale. She whispered that she was going to be a plumber.
One kid with a piece of copper and a flicker. Justice doesn't end with me.
Emily closed the toolbox, its brass plate catching the fluorescent light. The girl slipped the coupling into her pocket, and Emily knew her grandfather's name would keep traveling. That evening, Emily carried the USS Justice toolbox into her quiet apartment and placed it on the workbench by the window. The last sunlight caught the brass plate, the engraving sharp against the worn leather. She opened the lid and lifted out the framed service photo of Joseph Carter, then the 1944 copper elbow. One by one, she placed them on the shelf above the bench, the photo, the elbow, and her journeyman certificate. Her fingertip traced the freshly carved letters, USS Justice.
Justice for every apprentice who was told her knowledge was junk.
She stepped back. The shelf held 3 generations: a Navy sailor, a journeyman plumber, and a granddaughter who refused to forget. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the copper elbow gleamed, its 1944 anchor stamp finally at rest. The destroyer that elbow came from never sank. Neither would her grandfather's name. Fade to black.